Hello and welcome to making a basic level in Unreal Tournament 99 Part 2, or as I like to call it, making an advanced level in Unreal Tournament 99. Anyway, here is the level we worked on in Part 1, which is not very functional, it's only got 2 spawns. But let's carry on. One thing you might want to do, I don't think I covered it, but I've got a terrible memory, is making some trim. So let's make it a little bit prettier because it's ugly as sin. I'm just going to check it's recording. Yes, it's recording. So I've made a cube that has a height and breadth sufficient to cover the sides of this passageway, and I've positioned it so that it's just sitting within the mouth of the tunnel. I'm then going to intersect it as if I'm going to subtract those bits out, but what I'm going to do is add it instead. And then that's made this nice bit here, which I can then go and find a texture for. Let me find a texture. Right, so I'm going to cut the bit of video where I look through all of the industrial textures and realised they were boring. This is alright. I'll find something here. Let's go with that. That doesn't really work as a texture, but imagine that I found a better texture. Or we could have a slightly different vibe. There we go. So it's keeping that sort of 32 by 32 grid in that texture, and we have, let's just do these as well. So I haven't changed any of the texturing, I don't need to. So if I just do a quick rebuild, I'll move this off. You can see I've put a little detail there. I could also have, if I move that mesh, let's just get rid of that builder brush. I think if I move this a little bit forward, you'll get a sort of embossed effect. Let me just put it in unlit. So I'll need to also set these textures the same way as before. And so I've now created a bit of trim. I'm going to move that back a tiny bit. There we go. So it's not entirely optimal in terms of how the brush is set up, but that's made it look a bit more, well, less like a complete combination of mathematical shapes, let's put it that way. I am now going to double all this stuff up and make sure I've got all the things. So player start and all those things. I'm also going to grab that path node. So let's just try not control pasting, but to duplicate. Now there may be a problem. Yeah, if you've got, oh no, that's fine, because if you have these, what do they call it? The sort of not brush meshes, they can put you off the grid if you copy and paste. But I'm going to duplicate that again. If you control and paste, it offsets it in the Z-axis as well, which is just a pain. Let's do that on a sort of regular offset. So here we're solving the problem of not having many spawns. Oh, 7. Alright, there are 3 on the side. So 7 is not enough spawns for a DM level, I'd say. Right, so if you're joining me again, I've sped up the video while I selected all that stuff. What I should have done is made groups. Let me make a new group. Solid spawns, add everything to that group, and then I'm going to duplicate and move it all up. Let's rebuild that. So we've now got a platform that is offset from the lower platform. So let's have a lift. Now to make a mover, you make a brush. So I'm going to make a simple 128, 192. And I'm going to make it somewhere like that. So I will make it a little bit more complicated than just a simple brush. This may be an annoying lift to use, but it doesn't really matter. You can see the principles. So I'm going to add it there. There. So that's not an entirely brushy brush. I'm now going to make a brush that's big enough to encapsulate all of that. And I'm going to intersect so that now my brush has that detail. And I'm going to move it down there, make it not quite flush, and make it go there. I'm going to reduce the grid so I can put it flush against the floor there. And I'm going to add a mover. And there's different kinds of movers. An elevator mover would seem to be the right thing. I can't remember if you actually need to make it an elevator mover, but let's do that for now. These brushes I don't need anymore. And in this particular version of the editor, it shows you the mover. In other ones it doesn't, it shows you the outline. And you can select it and you see a different colour. So to use movers, once you've made them, if you right click, there's a movers menu and they have keys which are different positions they can be set to. If you select key 1 and you move it up, that defines the top of the elevator. You can access that also more indirectly through the mover properties of the actor, and key num is the key it's currently at. And you might want some sounds, but they're triggered by people standing on them. Let's get rid of that brush. And what I'm going to do is save, and I'm just going to open a stock level that I know has a lift, and I'm going to copy the sounds. So this is obviously a very well-known level. I think. Let's just open it. So, but anyway, what I want to copy is this stuff. Okay, so I've got into deck 16, I found a mover, and I found the sounds that it uses. So it uses a particular sound for closed and opened, and then there's a sound for moving. And so I'm going to just remember that. I'm going to go back to my test level. I'm going to find my mover. And I'm going to use those sounds. I think that was it. So whenever you run onto that platform, it should go up. Let's just quickly whack up a few path nodes. So let's go back to deck 16 and take a look at what they've done. So we have here a lift exit property, we've got a lift center, and at the top there's another lift exit. And this has a tag, as does this. So your mover has a tag. So all you've got to do is make those line up. So let's give that a go. Do not save. So lift exit, and there are variations, but that's translocate stuff. So lift exit, and that's going to mess with the pathing. That's a bad place for the boots. Let's move them out of the way. And we want a lift center. And the movers are rendered in a funny way. It's just how it is. And let's set up a tag. Main lift. I'm going to copy that. Lift exit. Lift tag. Main lift. Lift tag. Main lift. And then on the mover, events tag. Main lift. So that should be that sorted out. Shall we go and test that? So it works for us. It's customary to put 2 bits of ammo with each weapon, but not mandatory. Let's check our pathing. Alright, so they're not going across this bridge. Let's fix that. The easiest way is with a weapon. I am not going to put ammo for that because that will be a bit overpowered. And now that's created all those links. And you can see here the lift has got its stuff sorted. I'm going to move that a bit forward in case that's problematic. Let's make the lift centre the actual centre. Let's go try that. Okay. So the bots took the elevator. That's all you've got to do for that. I have taken the liberty of rearranging these spawns so they're not so hopeless, and each spawn, as far as here, cannot see or directly shoot at any other spawn. Because of the varying heights, the lower spawns have a disadvantage, so what I might do is add a little cover over the top of the spawn and also a bit of cover beside it so that players can wait for an opportune moment to come out. So what else do I want to do? I have had enough of my lava. I'm going to get rid of these lights. I've also added a bit more light everywhere. I'm going to take this texture and I'm going to make it invisible. Don't need it to be two-sided, doesn't matter about unlit, and it's definitely not solid. And I'm going to move it down, so I'm going to move that down somewhat, and I probably want that to be at a different grid. There we go. This is what you'll now see, which is done. I might make these invisible as well. Okay, so right, and here is what was a lava zone. There is a special, as far as I recall, I could be wrong, but there's a special zone info that is different from the others in that if you knock somebody off and they die in a cloud zone, you will get a kill. For a lot of things, a lot of kind of zones, like including lava, if somebody gets knocked off into the lava, they just die. You don't get a kill, which means that when you've got a lot of these platforms, games can take a long while because you end up going backwards in terms of kills if you keep committing suicide effectively. So with that as a cloud zone, anybody who's knocked off by another player's shot will score a kill. So that is one small tip. Let's rebuild that. That's handy. So now we've just got something that just has a fall. Well, one thing you can do, I may have shown you this in a previous one, is have a sort of fake light. Which you can angle and move. So that's going to be part of our light. Okay, that'll do. We'll want to make it unlit. And we'll want to add a light. So we've made our physical light. I have added a simple light there, and we'll turn this into a lens flare. So first of all, we'll turn down the actual light to nothing, because we don't want it to be giving off light. I think we need to set the light radius high. That may affect how visible it is. In display, we find a suitable lens flare. Let's go with that subtle one there and put that in skin. And the last thing is you need to turn on Corona. And that isn't, I think, visible in the editor, which is in game, and that is scaled with the draw scale, and that's far too big, so 0.1 is something more suitable, which makes it quite difficult to actually handle the lights and stuff. Let's move that a bit. And we're going to want a practical light for that. The whole lighting needs to be adjusted, but at this point let's find a spotlight and add that. And there it is. No, that's the mesh. Let's select it here. And you need to redirect it. Maybe make it extra bright. Maybe make it a little bit green. I think that's around 30. And the saturation down a bit. Doesn't make a huge difference, but that should, all those combination of things, that should give us a lens flare. So I've replaced the light cone with the Unreal light cone, which is, didn't mean to do that, which is just a decorations light cone, not the one in here. And I've resized it, changing the draw scale for this cone. That's 7. I have made this lens flare smaller, about 0.1. I'm going to try 0.07 even, because it's quite a chunky old lens flare I'm using. And I rebuilt the level, which it turns out was important. And a further feature I should have mentioned in my first video is this play map, so you don't have to go back into Unreal Tournament. So you just click that, and there is our very subtle lens flare. With the colours not right, there are other lens flares to choose from, but the important thing is that you have to set to use corona, not lens flare, which is a bit counterintuitive. So that's how to make a lens flare. And just to demo, if I let myself take a hit from the bot, never mind. Next up, low gravity zone. Everyone loves the low gravity zone. Let's find a zone info. So the main area has not got a zone info. So let's pop one in. There's a police helicopter going around near me. Apologies if that intrudes. Zone info. There is a gravity zone, but you don't need to set that. Just go to your zone gravity and change that to something small and rebuild, otherwise the zone stuff doesn't get baked in. And let's have a little play. Whee! So that is all you need to know for a low gravity zone. Pairs well with a cloud zone to make sure everyone dies. I think a cloud zone also eats all the things that get dropped. Next, let's look at movers again, different kinds. Let's make a simple rotating mover. I'm not even sure it has to be a mover, to be honest. Not messing about with any keys, just going to rotation rote your something quite big. Do a rebuild. And I think that's enough. So you can increase that number to make it spin around more. Obviously the texturing is completely wrong. But yeah, nothing more required. Let's look at something else. Let's Shift B to select all of those. Let's get a random texture. There we go. And let's make that go a bit faster. Just a bit of interest in the level. You can have different kinds of movers. Let's copy that polygons to a brush. Let's put this down somewhere. Quite hard to see what I'm doing. Must be even harder if you're watching the video. Right, so I'll make a mover down there. Let's make a simple one again. And there it is. Now, there are some properties movers have which may not be immediately apparent. So, these are different kinds of movers you can have. And stand open timed. Just to remember. So, they will move to their first key and return. Some of them will repeatedly do things, something that will toggle its position. This is one you use a lot, that if you trigger it, it opens. So bump requires a collision, but trigger means that something's going to trigger that. And let's just set a key 1 so we can see that it's doing something. Let's make this one go up, and we'll reset to key 0, and let's come on to triggers. So bumping is fairly straightforward, but a trigger, if I can remember where it is, triggers. There's a few different kinds, but let's pop this down here, and you'll want to turn on view, one of these, radii view. Hard to see again. Let's see if that looks any better. No, not really. You can just about see the outline of it. It's hard in this particular combination of things. And collision. You can collide or block. We don't want to block anything, but it'll collide with actors, which means players. And I'll make that a bit taller, and I'll make that quite a lot bigger. So basically anything coming into this area, and let's also turn on the radii view here, so you can see what's going to trigger that. So if we then, with our low gravity, so we can get around more easily, just do a little test, do the damn thing. I forgot to set up the tags, very important. So these sort of communicate via tags. So I'm going to call this our timed open mover. I'm going to copy that, and then on our trigger, and there are also different kinds of triggers. You can have ones that could be shot, any pawn, or just player, but we just want player. We don't want people shooting to trigger it, but that's something that we can do. And somewhere I need to plug in event, I think. Let's walk onto it, and there it goes. And if we wait, it should come down again, because that's a timed open. If we made it toggle, it would toggle. So this is something that could do doors opening when you come up to them, although you might want it to stay open. You could have, so the event is not just triggers, but triggers are a useful place to put it. So with the different kinds of triggers and different kinds of movers, you can get a lot of interesting interaction. You can get things that trigger death, so if you go into some kind of death zone it'll kill you, but that's usually better done with zones. There are some things that work on the AI, and you can get things like after a certain number of activations it'll trigger something else. Dispatches are interesting things. They trigger lots of things at once, if I recall correctly. So you have delays and events that are triggered. So if you want a sequence of things to happen, you use a dispatcher. Elevator triggers or something else. You can turn on music, and there are random triggers. You can have a little look at these things, see what's there. So they have a series of events that can be picked randomly. What else have we got that you might want to use? I mean, how deep do you want to get into it? There are actors that work on different game modes. Maybe I'll do different game modes another time. Teleporters, let's look at teleporters. So the ones you'll see in deathmatch levels are visible teleporters. So let's make things easier there. Let's put a teleporter there. And I think it's possible to make it one way, but let's, for the sake of argument, make it a two-way one. And I suspect you just put tags, and you get URL, I think is the tag you want to go to. So let's try teleporter 1. This is teleporter 2. And you can do various things. I think that'll flip the play around. But I suspect also they've got a direction. So that's probably where you come out of it. And let's go down to teleporter 1. And let's set URL teleporter 2. And make it unhelpfully face that way. So let's give them a go. And what it's missing is a sound. Right, so that's teleporters. Maybe one last thing, I'll call it a day. Kickers, special kind of trigger. Just going to make something that is visually special so that you know you're standing on a kicker. Okay, that is my kicker. So let's get our kicker. And it's helpful to be in radius view. Let's change the collision. We don't need it that high, but we do want it a bit wider. I think this is an approximation. I don't know. I think it is in practice precisely circular, though it's drawn like a 6-sided cylinder. So that's the area that's going to be affected. We want to make it point in the right way, and we're going to want to use this view. That's not terribly helpful. Okay, so that is going to shoot us up with a velocity that we can pick in kicker. Now I can't remember what is set along that direction, or indeed what the units are. A separate thing I'm going to show you is, so when things activate, they generally trigger events that are in the event field, regardless of what kind of act they are normally. And one of the types of trigger is a special event, which I'm going to add underneath here. There isn't really any occlusion. And this is really just going to play a sound effect. I don't know if there's better ways or other ways to do this. This is copying a setup I had on another level. That's the sort of door sound. And we need to put the tag kicker event. So with any luck, we will get a sound effect and a big kick. Moment of truth. There we go. So that gave us a big old kick. So what I missed off my special event is this initial state, and play sound effects, what I wanted. But yeah, this is another kind of trigger that has a lot of interesting things that you can do, including displaying a message. So let's just try that, and you can see it's showing you how these things are linked by the events, which is kind of handy. Right, so we want to display a message. Get kicked, loser. So now let's see what happens. So we've got that message. I don't know that the sound effect goes. But there you go, so some more possibilities with special events to deal specific damage, to display messages, which I'm sure won't be abused by anybody, and to play sound effects. Alright, now I am done. Thank you, goodbye.